Now, a passive solar collector is something that doesn't move, doesn't have moving parts, it's passive, and it collects solar energy. Well, this greenhouse facing south collected solar energy. It doesn't have any moving parts. So this greenhouse was the level of understanding that I had at the time of the whole equation. So I move into this house. In the first year that I'm living in there, the first few months, I moved in the summer, and in January 2nd, I believe, an ice storm came to the whole area and formed an inch of ice on every pine needle and every limb, and every blade of grass had an inch of ice on it. So tree limbs were crashing and power lines were down for 30 miles around. And this house was sitting in the middle of the ice storm, and I woke up the morning of the ice storm, and it was trees crashing in the woods, big crashing sounds out in the woods, because I was surrounded by heavy hardwood. And I got up and I started walking around the house, and I went out into the greenhouse, and it was warmer than the house. Now, it was gray, it looked like it was going to snow, it was overcast, it was about 20 degrees outdoors, and there was ice on everything. And the greenhouse, however, was about 70 degrees. The house had dropped down to 50 degrees. So later on, an hour or so later, I'm up at the top of the greenhouse, right up here on this level. There was a pair of French doors, which are just above this picture, on the third level in the greenhouse. And I opened these French doors, and picture now, the house is freezing cold, or it's 50 degrees, it feels cold. There's gray skies, ice on everything, no sun shining, and I opened these doors, and 180-degree air hit me in the face. It was like a light came on. I realized right at that moment that if I knew how that air was 180 degrees, if I could repeat the experiment and get the air to be 180 degrees with no sun and ice on everything and 20 degrees outside, if I knew how that came about, I could use that knowledge to keep the whole house at whatever temperature I wanted it. So that caused me to go off on a real mad search, which lasted for 2 years, trying to figure out how I could do that, how I could make it work, how I could take that knowledge and that phenomena and make it work for me to keep a house comfortable. And after 2 years, I was, should I censor the story or tell them the whole story?
Oh, you know, it'd be cool if you could switch places. And let's put a video thing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. We're working it out.
Who was the cameraman on this stuff?
Me. God help
What,
me.
you had me?
Yeah, this is much better. Yeah, then we did
That's
it.
better. That's better. I didn't see what.
Well, I don't want to turn my back to anybody. So, after 2 years of paying 5 people, I had 5 people on my staff, architects and engineers, and for 2 years I spent most of my time trying to crack the whole equation and figure out what was going on. And I had some very bright people helping me, and we were working and working and working, and we basically felt like we were right on the verge of it. And one day I realized we weren't going to be able to go on because we were running out of money, and we needed to find jobs with contractors that would pay our bills. And the group wasn't really able to go out and find the work, so it was all on me. And I went to the woods one day, frustrated, to try to figure out where to go to find the paying commissions. And I was lying there on the floor of the woods with my head up against this pine tree, and I looked up at the sky, and the pine boughs were, you know, going like this, and the question went through my mind. I just thought, why in the hell that we have such a struggle and a hassle. Everything we try to do ends up being a hassle. And this pine tree, it's not, it hasn't even lifted a finger. And it's like sitting here and it's got everything it needs. And I asked this question and bam, this diagram of this envelope came in my mind. And I ran back to the house and drew it all out. When I first drew it, the way it came in my mind, it was a round house, half underground and half above ground. And it had the double air space like this, and it had an air intake that came down like this into the underground area so it could provide air at the base. And then it had a little thing at the top that opened up and let the air out. And I ran back to the office and I drew this whole thing out, and all the guys were there, and I'm like freaking out, and they're going, oh God, what's he off on now? And because I'm like the mad scientist and they're the regular people, you know, that show up every day. And so I'm drawing this out and everybody's going, oh really, you know, and they look at it and nobody really got it. I mean, they saw it and everything, but it obsessed me. I was in the frame of mind at the time that, as I said earlier, that it was us and them. It was us, me, and the people that I knew. And them, they were the bad guys. They were the guys that ran the oil companies and the big corporations where people were numbers. So I had this clear picture of this enemy. These big bad guys that ran big corporations and treated people like numbers and used fossil fuel and were killing the earth. So I decided to give this to the people, to take it to the people and give it away, and not to patent it and go through the bad guys and you know, all of that, because I thought this is too valuable. You shouldn't sell something that could save lives and save people from burning up the world and everything. It ought to be made available to everybody. So I went to Berkeley. I ended up leaving Tennessee because I kept talking to bankers and builders and people around Tennessee, and they said, what do you want to build one of these for? They got a nuclear power plant going in over here 50 miles away. It's going to be all the power we can use. And it's like, that's what everybody's attitude was, you know, you're crazy. Why would you do this? Why go through all this? There's power, we're going to have plenty of power. So I left Tennessee thinking, you know, I didn't leave just for that reason. There was another reason that I left. The IRS called me up and said, we haven't received the payment, the 941 payment of like $11,000, and we want it. And I said, I've already paid it. I paid the contractor. And they said, well, he didn't pay us. And I said, I paid him and he didn't pay you, and now you're coming at me? And they go, yeah, we'll be out there Thursday. And I'm thinking, my God, I'm sitting here with a couple of cars that are paid for, and they're going to come out here and attach something. So I got my family. I sold one of the BMWs. I piled my family into the other one and loaded it with 50 pounds of wheat and corn and the grinder and some skillets and some camping gear, and we took off. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't going to let the IRS have both of those BMWs after I'd already paid the bill. And I ended up in San Francisco. And I ended up in Berkeley talking to the dean of the School of Architecture about what I was doing. And that led to me being asked to teach a class in solar energy in the engineering department. And that led to me being asked to lecture to a group of people that formed the Berkeley Solar Group, Solar Energy Group. And that, to make a long story short, I ended up teaching in the graduate school at Berkeley, at UC Cal Berkeley. And I ended up appearing before hundreds of groups and lecturing to national audiences of the Department of Energy and getting thousands of these homes built all over the world according to this concept and these plans. And because I chose to give it away, it died. You see, if you don't sell something, no one wants it. If they don't have to give you something in order to get what it is they want, they're not interested. They have to give you something. or they don't value what they get.